$47 million cap hit.
Do you ever have football nightmares when you sleep? And if so, could you give an example?
Yeah.
I cannot think of a dumber trade that could be trending right now in the direction of the Chiefs are making a trade.
Today we're going to talk about 3 major acquisitions for the Chiefs and all the rumors that are floating about.
He's going to be 38 when the season kicks off. He turns 38 on July 19th.
Let's pay a damn Papaw $50 million next year.
The dumbest trade ever if they made this happen. It doesn't make any sense.
Kansas City has also made something of a habit of bringing in veteran wide receivers who were cast off by other teams.
I just don't know if I want to bring a guy that has all this social media and all this off-the-field stuff that he does. We just don't need all of that. And I believe Stefon Diggs brings a lot of headaches that the Chiefs just don't need. It's obvious, Steve, we don't have Advil or Jalen Royals would have got on the field last year.
Ladies and gentlemen, football fans everywhere, welcome back to All Chiefed Up, the #1 independent Chiefs channel on YouTube. It is Tuesday, April the 7th, and we're bringing you this podcast presented by Prize Picks. Today we're going to talk about 3 major acquisitions for the Chiefs and all the rumors that are floating about. We're also going to talk about that top pick and what the Chiefs might be targeting in the 2026 NFL Draft. Do us a favor, hit that like button, stick around for a while. Mike, how are we feeling today, baby?
Feeling good. We've got a lot of rumors coming around, a lot floating around. Look, let's take #1 rumor right off the board here. Let's just get to it right now. The #1 rumor we're hearing today was that the Chiefs are still interested in trading for left tackle Trent Williams. Steve, I cannot think of a dumber trade that could be trending right now in the direction of the Chiefs are making a trade.
It really doesn't make any sense, man. And let's start with this. A $47 million cap hit in 2026. What the hell are we talking about here? Besides, we just drafted Josh Simmons last season to be that left tackle. And guess what? He did pretty damn good at it in his rookie season. I just don't understand. I know there's a question mark at right tackle. And the only thing that makes any logical sense to me, Mike, is the fact that Josh Simmons kind of sucked in run blocking last year. He was pretty low. PFF grade like 48.1 for the season. Trent Williams is known as one of the best run blocking tackles ever in the history of football, and they just brought in K9. And you also have to think Josh Simmons also spent a lot of time on the right side before he was the left tackle. So maybe in a world where the Chiefs want to spend $47 million or whatever on Trent Williams, they're trying to put Josh Simmons to the right, have Trent Williams on the left, and they think they're going to have this great, awesome run offense with K9. I don't know. It seems crazy to me, and it's pretty wild.
You're bringing up running stats.
Exactly.
For a high-flying Chiefs team. That makes no sense. Exactly. I'm not saying you're doing it, but I'm just saying if that's your logic, you are just so far off in left field, you got to be crazy. You mentioned $47 million or $48 million on the contract. He's going to be 38 when the season kicks off. He turns 38 on July 19th.
Let's pay a damn Papaw $50 million next year.
This is astronomically the dumbest trade ever if they made this happen. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not taking Josh Simmons off the left side. To me, yes, he did have to leave in the middle of the season. That was a family emergency. It has been taken care of. That is not happening in year 2. 100% that's not happening again in year 2. Okay? We don't have to worry about that. He needs to be playing on the left side. He done really well. If you want to move him to the right side, cool. But I'm not going and doing it by a 38-year-old left tackle. I'm not doing it. I'm going to address it in the draft at an appropriate pick, or I'm going to go out and get a better target in age and everything else, and somebody that I can actually afford. This is an asinine trade scenario, and if the Chiefs really do this, I would want Brett Veach checked.
Oh, absolutely. We have to evaluate him mentally and think about maybe moving on at that point.
Maybe physically, because somebody may have him in a basement torturing him to make this pick.
Yeah, it's pretty
maybe
damn
John
wild.
Lynch or somebody. Who knows?
Well, Mike, we also know the Chiefs need an edge rusher. We're going to talk about that a lot more when we get to the draft talk. But there is another trade rumor.
Yeah, we have Bill Barnwell from ESPN coming out and saying 2026 NFL mock draft with all trades, deals for round 1 picks. He went on to suggest the Chiefs give up pick number 9 and Felix Udike-Uzama to the Vikings, and we would get pick number 18, round 3 pick 97, and edge rusher Jonathan Greenard. He goes on to say this: One other way to address that need at edge rusher would be to add a star in Jonathan Greenard, who racked up 12 sacks and 22 knockdowns with the Vikes in 2024 before injuries wrecked his 2025 campaign. Greenard will turn 29 in May, so he should still have a couple of good years of impactful pass rush before the Chiefs would need to worry about moving on. He goes on to say he's got $37.9 million remaining on his deal, and though Brett Veach and company would have to address that contract with a meaningful raise, Greenard could still be an easily justifiable addition for the Chiefs. He did say one thing at the very end of his article that made some sense. The Chiefs also need cornerbacks, absolutely, but I'm just not sure Veach philosophically values corners enough to use a top 10 pick at that position. The Chiefs could use their later first rounder on a corner and still add an immediately impactful edge rusher in Greenard. I'm completely fine with that last thing. I do not think the Chiefs will probably draft somebody at number 9, Mansour Delane or Jermon McCoy. That feels a little rich for me. So maybe 29 makes more sense. He's right there. I don't know if I want to go after an older pass rusher with that much money and having to give him a raise again. This is another Trent Williams situation.
Yeah, well, it's not quite that bad because he's 10 years younger than Trent Williams, and he is a top 20 edge rusher in the entire league. Granted, like you mentioned, in 2025, he had the injury problem, but that's something else you have to consider here. You're looking at probably a cap hit of somewhere around $19 million at the minimum. And then you got a guy that's coming off an injury. You're not sure how that's going to play out. I mean, I do like the idea of bringing in a top 20 edge rusher. We absolutely need that in the house. That's right. Across from George Karlaftis, we've not been able to get that other side of the edge taken care of there. So it's like we're kind of just weighted pretty heavily over to that one side of the defensive line where it's George Karlaftis, Chris Jones, and there have been question marks on the other side. This would solve that problem, but I think it's a little bit of a risky play, and I don't think it's worth it to trade away the pick and potentially Felix, who, I mean, let's be honest here. I don't feel like Felix is going to get it together this year, but he could. And I just don't know if it's enough from Greenard for me to think that this would be like a surefire thing. I think a lot of people are thinking they're going to try to target edge rusher in the draft anyway in that top 10, which we'll talk about more here in a little bit. But I just don't know if you go out and you try to solve it this way and then kind of change your whole draft strategy. I'm not sure.
No, absolutely. I think if you don't get Bain or Bailey, your top 10 pick kind of feels like a bust. Again, I would be fine taking a Caleb Downs, maybe even a Sonny Styles if he fell, but I'm getting really weird about Sonny Styles because, again, is Spags going to use him properly? He never used Leo Chanel properly. We all thought he could have been used as a pass rusher and coming off the edge and this and that. He just couldn't find a way to do it. So it scares me a little bit. So if you don't get those two, maybe you would consider it. So if this was a trade down on draft night that you could move back to pick number 18, you might be able to snag Kenyon Sadiq. Right there, you may be able to take Keldrick Falk, and I wouldn't feel too bad about it. You may be able to grab, the kid from Clemson. TJ Parker. There's several things you could do, and yes, you get to pick up an extra third rounder. So that's kind of cool. But other than that, I'm not just sold on Greenard. Yes, in 2024, when he was fully healthy, he had 12 sacks and 59 tackles, I think 18 tackles for loss. But he's been injured. That shoulder surgery he had in 2025 where he missed a lot of time and the playoffs, it's just something that you never know if it's going to come back. In 2022, he had a stint on the IR, if I'm not mistaken, when he was with Houston with a calf injury. He was sick in 2021 and missed some time with a foot injury. So he's kind of got this stigma lately that he can't stay on the football field.
It's a pattern. Yeah. We don't need Christian Fulton on the defensive line.
Right, and in 2026, it does say that we'll probably have to bring in about $17.5 million to get him here. Plus, he's got a $1 million roster bonus due in the spring that we maybe would have to take on. And they're saying restructure and give him a raise. So I just don't know about it. To me, this sounds like a dud suggestion, the same way as the Trent Williams suggestion.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is, let's think about that for a second. You said back in 2024, he had 12.5 sacks. You know who had 12? George Karlaftis.
Okay.
So, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's not like you're getting this premier. You're not getting a Max Crosby over there. You're not getting someone crazy like that. Greenard is good, but it's not exactly like this crazy top-tier premier edge rusher. And I think that's what you would have to be going after if you wanted to give up, high draft picks, maybe players and stuff like that. I just don't know if this moves the needle enough. Let's talk about another acquisition that's kind of heating up. You've seen a lot of links of the Chiefs to Stefon Diggs. Let's look at this article here from Heavy Sports. It says Patriots could lose key star to AFC rival contender, and that's where they go on to talk about the Chiefs maybe being a potential suitor for Stefon Diggs, and they might sign him. It says bringing in Stefon Diggs wouldn't be a weird move, though. The Chiefs need to add a wide receiver to a room that currently sports Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and not much else. Kansas City has also made something of a habit of bringing in veteran wide receivers who were cast off by other teams.
Yeah, so Diggs in 2025, he did have 85 receptions for 1,000 yards. I think that was his 8th consecutive 1,000-yard season. 4 touchdowns on 102 targets. So it's not like he was absolutely horrible in 2025. He played with Drake May. Of course, he made Drake May look like an MVP candidate to some of the media all year long. So, look, here's the thing. He's 32. It's another old guy. Again, he's going to turn 33, I think, in November, if I'm right. His market is just not very hot right now. I don't feel like they're saying a 1 to 2 year deal for about 14 to 16 million. If you lace that with a lot of heavy incentives, maybe. But I mean, look, the Chiefs never even give, for example, Hollywood Brown this much money in a single year. Like, nobody is really getting this much money from the Chiefs. The $8 to $9 million range, possibly. But I would feel more comfortable just bringing back Juju for another year and let him do the dirty work at this point. I just don't know if I want to bring a guy that has all this social media and all this off the field stuff that he does, and he'll put up cryptic posts about his quarterback and frustration with the room. We just don't need all of that. And I believe Stefon Diggs brings a lot of headaches that the Chiefs just don't need. It's obvious, Steve, we don't have Advil, or Jalen Royals would have got on the field last year.
Yeah, well, the Stefon Diggs thing, you kind of took it back to Hollywood Brown. He's a different tier of receiver than Hollywood Brown. He's definitely going to cost more than Hollywood Brown.
At 33 years old, though?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But here's the thing about it. Stefon Diggs, does he move the needle enough to pay him that much? I mean, you could argue that. You're saying he's a little bit old and everything else, but I still think he's a different tier, a different level of receiver than a Hollywood Brown or an MVS, who they paid a lot of money to. So I think if you kind of brought him in on a 1 year, 2 year deal, and you're looking at, say, $8 to $9 million per year, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But here's the problem with it, and you mentioned it. It's his off-field issues. I mean, he's currently in an ongoing legal matter involving his chef or something like that. There's been a lot of talk about him maybe not even playing much next year. He might even be incarcerated. So the Chiefs don't need to bring in anything that's going to add to the off-field issues that this team has had in recent years. I don't know if that's a great idea at all. Now, if you're just talking about Stefon Diggs as a player and how he plays the game, then absolutely, it sounds great to have that veteran receiver. Like you mentioned, Juju. That's kind of what Juju's done for us. I feel like Stefon Diggs could do that to a better level than Juju. And then, of course, I actually think he could move the needle altogether when you look at the wide receiver room, because you got, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. But then you're just talking about Jalen Royals, you're talking Tyquan Thornton. It's not like that there's a lot of proven guys on this roster. At least that would be somebody that has some experience in the league.
Yes, he might be a different tier than a Hollywood Brown, but Hollywood Brown, just like everybody else, just like DeAndre Hopkins and anybody else we bring in, you have to now come in and fit in an Andy Reid system. You have to fit in a Chiefs offense where you're not the number one guy. You're not getting 102 targets in our offense. You're not getting that. So he's not going to have 102 targets for 1,000 yards. He's not going to get it. So he's going to sit over there and mope and whine. He's going to be just like Hollywood Brown. If Hollywood Brown would have got 102 targets, he would have been closer to 1,000 yards. But you're just not going to get that in our offense. He's not going to do the things Juju wants to do either. Juju's going to block. Like, they're different wide receivers, but Juju has come in and taken less money and just been a big team player. I don't feel like you're going to get that from Stefon Diggs.
That's the big problem.
Chiefs Kingdom, we have officially partnered with Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy sports platform. It's distinctly separate from a traditional sports book, and it's the absolute best way to add some extra heat to every single game. The app is incredibly easy to use. You aren't playing against sharks. You're just picking more or less on an individual player projection. Think Kenneth Walker's total rushing yards per game, more or less. Travis Kelce's total touchdowns in 2026, only 4, more or less. You just pick at least 2 players, lock in your lineup, and you're in the action. Prize Picks is available in most states, including California, Texas, Florida, and right here in the heart of America, Missouri and Kansas. One thing we love is the new public feed. You can actually find and follow us directly on the app at All Chiefed Up. You'll be able to see our live lineups and tell our picks before we even post them here on the channel or our other social media platforms. So if you haven't joined yet, just download the app and use code HMA when you sign up. When you play your first $5 lineup, you're going to get $50 in lineups instantly. Click the link in the description, use code HMA, and remember to always play responsibly. Now back to the show.
That's the giant problem here. Like I said, if you just look at it on paper, you look at him as the receiver and it's like, that sounds great. But let's just be real here. It would not work out great for the Chiefs. There's no way, with the off-field issues and also the locker room issues and just the guy's overall attitude, me first attitude, I think it's a terrible fit, and I don't think the Chiefs will go for it.
Yeah, I don't either. I just don't see it. I just don't know at 33 years old how much of an impact. Here's my thing. Let me say it this way. I don't know if the headache and the production level out. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. I don't think so.
100%. Well, let's move this on to the NFL draft, guys, because we talked about all these different scenarios where the Chiefs could acquire a proven player are kind of heating up. But also the NFL draft is just a couple of weeks away, and the Chiefs have pick number 9, which is very rare for the Chiefs to have a pick that high up in the draft. And let's take a look, Mike, real quick. I just want to read off who they've actually had top 30 visits with real quick. Yeah. We'll go from there. They've had a top 30 with Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate, Caden Proctor, Oscar Delp, Justin Jolie, and Ted Hurst. Then you also have David Bailey, Arvell Reese, Caleb Banks, Jack Dingle, and Chris Johnson. That's all the top 30s. Now, while they didn't have top 30 visits, the Chiefs did confirm meetings with some guys at the Senior and the Shrine Bowls, and that was Lander Barton, linebacker from Utah, Jayshawn Barham, defensive lineman from Michigan, Denny Sutton from Penn State, Dominique Orange from Iowa State, and then Tristan Lee, offensive tackle of Clemson. And there's also another guy from an HBCU showcase. It's one of the international pathway players named UR Bernard that they have been heavily interested in. And some people think they could bring him in on like a official visit.
Yeah, look, the Chiefs have done a lot of homework with the top 30. We were talking about this today off camera, just driving down the road. It seems like there was a time that we were selecting from the top 30, and over the past few years, it seems like they've went away. I think we looked at the 2022 class when they took McDuffie and Karlaftis and everybody, and I don't think that we took anybody. But yet the year that they drafted B.J. Thompson, they brought him in for a top 30. They had brought somebody else in for a top 30 that year. I don't remember who it was off the top of my head, but it seems like it feels like we don't know if they're blowing smoke at this point or if they're actually evaluating. And here's what I'll say with the top 30 so far. I believe right now they're looking at a lot of guys, such in the case of Oscar Delp, a guy who underperformed in college, maybe wasn't utilized correctly, and they want to see if that injury is fine and if they can get more out of him once he gets to the league.
Right.
I think with guys like Reese and Bailey, my bad, I think that they're wanting to say, look, let's take a look at these guys. If either of them were to fall a little bit, do we feel comfortable enough to come up for them? I think that's what they're looking at right there, because a lot of people's like, look, they've not brought Bain in the top 30. They may be comfortable with Bain. I don't think they're completely out on Bain. I just believe they know that he fits the system so well. Now, he still could have taken a top 30 and it's not just been put out to the public yet, or maybe they're still waiting to bring him in on a top 30. You still got a couple weeks. So that could happen. But I believe out of those three, it just makes the most sense that he is the Spags guy. He is the fit out of all those three. And I think they want to do their due diligence on the other two to see, look, if there's any fit and Bain's off the board and those two fall, is there a chance we could go up and get them? Is there enough qualities? Is there enough fit to our system? And I believe that's what they were doing there. In the case of, say, Ted Hurst and things like that, I think that that's just smaller school guys. They're wanting to come in, have a look, and see if they can fit the system.
Yeah, so a lot of people have been trying to figure out what the Chiefs are going to target with that first pick that they have in the draft. They have a top 10 pick for the first time in a long time. And you start looking at some of these offseason acquisitions, Mike, I think that they might steer, to me, towards defensive end. It has to be an edge rusher. Yeah. It's the only thing they haven't addressed in the offseason. They went out and got the running back and kind of threw all that Jeremiah Love, horniness out the window. Because all of a sudden it's like, hey, you got K9. That's not going to happen. Then you got people still talking about taking Mansour Delane or Jamad McCoy, but they went and got Kyrie Elam, Kader Kohu, and kind of addressed that situation there. You still got Christian Fulton, Noah Williams, and some others. Then they even went and got the safety. After Brian Cook didn't re-sign, they went and got Aloy Gilman. The only thing they haven't addressed, Mike, is that edge rusher. Now, people could say wide receiver as well, because we just talked about how they, people's been linking Stefon Diggs there because there is something left to be desired in the wide receiver room. So maybe they could go Carnell Tate. Maybe they could go Mekhi Lemon. But the thing that they have not addressed whatsoever, makes the most sense to me, is that edge rusher position. Like you just talked about, are they going to go off script a little bit here? Are they going to try to finally find a speed rusher that can play 3 downs? Because right now, we talked about that too. They brought in Josh Uche and some guys like that, but they just couldn't run defend. They were terrible. They could only be on the field at a certain situation, and they never were able to get home. You don't want that to happen with a David Bailey or an Arvell Reese if you spend a lot of draft capital on them, because you might have to trade up to get either of those guys. And you mentioned they hadn't brought in Bain on a top 30 visit yet, but he is the most Spagsy type edge rusher in this draft. So could they go up and try to get him? I don't know. A lot of people think that when I read about it, a lot of the insiders and everything, they think that they might actually be trying to go off script here and try to get David Bailey or Arvell Reese, and that they'll take Bain if he falls to them.
That's a wild take, in my opinion. I don't think we're looking to go grab those two over Bain. I still think Bain's the best fit. You mentioned wide receiver, and I thought that was another big thing with Chiefs Kingdom. Again, we did kind of address that a little bit. We signed back Tyquan Thornton. That's who everybody wanted back. Tyquan Thornton basically is your Carnell Tate type wide receiver. Again, not going to say that they're the same level, ceiling, or floor, but he's still been successful in our offense enough that all the fans wanted him back, and they brought him back. But they did take top 30s with Lemon and Tate. They also took a top 30 with Ted Hurst, who's more the X-style wide receiver. So maybe that leads you in a direction of look, if we like Lemon better, maybe Hurst could be added on later in the draft. Or maybe this is another standpoint of we liked Carnell Tate better, but if he goes, now we did our due diligence on Hurst because we don't like Lemon. So there's a lot of different ways you can take all this. And that's what they're doing. They're taking the liberty right now to say, look, they're going to go up and get Arvell Reese. They're going up to get David Bailey. They're just going to take Bain if he falls. I absolutely don't believe that at all. You brought it up. The reason that one big reason that Felix could not stay on the field long enough to develop anything hardly is because he gets just trounced in the running game. If you can't run, defend, and set that edge in a Spags defense, you're not going to play a long time. And so that's the thing. He only got to play X amount of snaps because he's not a 3-down guy. He's only in there for situational type things. And if you can't get home in those limited 12, 15 plays a game, you just become a bust at that point. If you can set the edge and you can stop somebody on run defense like Ruben Bain, guess what? You're going to get more opportunities to be on the field, and then there's going to be more opportunities for you to think they're going to run the ball, but lo and behold, they're going to pass. And so you're going to get more opportunities to rush the passer and things like that. So I do think Ruben Bain is their number one. I'm never coming off that. For me personally, I'm starting to dig in more to David Bailey as a possibility, especially when they put up that top 30. And I've liked what I've seen. Is he going to be strong enough to set the edge of the NFL? I think that's exactly why they brought him in on a top 30. I think they're checking that. They're checking out his awareness. They're checking out if he could do certain things like that. They probably had somebody come in and test him and see if he could hold up trying to set an edge on a big tackle. If they feel like he can do it, David Bailey has a lot of juice, brother. He could get after a quarterback quick, and that would be a big change from what we've been used to with the George Karlaftis types.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about Frank Clark earlier today and how he's probably the last undersized, just really athletic defensive end that the Chiefs have had that has been able to set the edge properly. And that's why we saw him on the field as much as we did. If we could find another guy in the vein of Frank Clark and maybe a much better athlete like David Bailey that can still help in that run game, that would be huge. That could maybe be, the straw that breaks the camel's back and gets us a speed rusher that actually has opportunities to get after the quarterback for the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's vital that we find somebody that can get after the edge or get after the quarterback at edge. Again, we have not touched this position. Frank Clark, when he come out, he was 6'3", 265, okay? And so David Bailey, I've got him marked right now at 6'3", 251. So he's showing up about 14 pounds smaller. I think what they want to do is they want to see if he can come in and he can add some weight, because I'm pretty sure that Frank Clark at some points in his career He got all the way up to 275. So he was playing between 260 and 275. And at the combine in 2015, he actually weighed in at 271. So he had potential, and everybody knew he had potential to put that weight on. If I remember correctly, he lost a bunch of weight and got in shape there that last season.
Yep.
And technically, he didn't look very good that season. He wasn't doing the same things we remember seeing him do, and a lot of that could have been for age. But I do believe David Bailey at 251 could probably put on a good 9 or 10 pounds, and it shouldn't affect his quickness too much.
Yeah, for sure. You guys get down in the comments. Let us know what you think about this draft coming up. Do you think they have to be going edge rusher early? Because what else makes sense? You tell us. I'd love to read it. Also, what do you think about the trade rumors for Trent Williams or Jonathan Greenard? And also, do you think the Chiefs should sign Stefon Diggs to help with the wide receiver room? If you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to do us a favor. Give us a 5-star review. Write something nice in there. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And share this out with your friends and family and anybody that loves the Chiefs or the NFL in general. And we'd appreciate it a whole lot. And we'll catch you next time. Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.